guys, so this is, well, a newer what, not a newer what if, but a what if I was working on, and I'm really going to put a lot more time into. So let's start the video, let's get into it. What if Deku was Black Lightning Part 1? Now guys, I will be uploading Part 2 if this video gets over 100 views by pretty much, well, tomorrow evening or tonight. I might upload it tonight. It matters which time you're seeing this video. So basically, yeah. So pretty much, this is a what if I was thinking about because I wanted to replace my Chucky with what if Deku was Chucky what if because, well, one of my followers or one of the subscribers on my channel that I know personally as a friend at school, basically he said it makes no sense because how would you make Deku Chucky? He wouldn't be able to fit into any of your canon stories, and you would have to make your own stories up. You did it good with Batman and the Batman what if and whatnot, and he said that was good, but basically, let's just dive into the what if. Now basically, this is gonna be a little bit more visual, gonna show a little bit more pictures and stuff like that to really get you in the feel and make you imagine and have a visual of the setting of the video and the story. I'm gonna do that a little bit more with my what ifs now. I've done it a lot of times back then, but I'm gonna do it a lot more this time. Let's just get into it, guys. We start our story off with Azuka Midoriya, but not just Azuka Midoriya. We just switched back to before he was born, a more past story, setting up his future. We start our story off with Deku's father, Asashi. Now, in this universe, Asashi would have been African American, and he would have grown up in Freeland. He would have grown up in Freeland, and he would be a journalist, similar to, well, pretty much, well, Jefferson Pierce or the original Black Lightning's father. Basically, what happened is things would happen similar to the same. His father pretty much just being a journalist, and he wouldn't be approached with the biases problem in the super program that got him killed in the first place. Basically, before he met, well, Inko. He would meet Inko at a very young age, about 20 to 30. Basically, he would have fell in love with Inko very quickly, and pretty much they would have shortly got married in the next, 2 or 3 years. Basically, they would got married, and they would have started to have a family. They would have tried and tried, and they would eventually, well, Inko would have gotten pregnant. At this point, they would be in Japan, and they would be living there. Pretty much, Asashi wouldn't get that much diversity, since it is an anime, and also, some people just, discard the fact that some anime characters are African American. So basically, yeah. Basically, what happened is, well, he would have been living a quiet, okay life in Japan, finding a journalist job there, and getting paid very highly, but having to work overseas in pretty much near Freeland. Now, he wanted to be closer with his family. He didn't want to miss Deku growing up. He wanted to be there. Pretty much, we would see, well, Asashi would have convinced Inko to move to Freeland. They would have moved to Freeland, and they would have moved into Asashi's old house he lived in that he bought from his dad after Deku's grandfather, or after Asashi's father passed away. The house would be very similar to the canon house of the Jeffersons or the Pierces in basically, well, the canon universe. Basically the same house model as basically the Pierces in the Black Lightning TV show. 2-story, nice layout, everything. Basically, they would live there for a good amount of time. Deku being about, let's say, 11, 12, maybe. Basically, him being about that age, him living in Freeland. And basically, he would learn a lot of things, him not being a punk. And in this universe, Deku not being a punk. But quirks should still be a thing, though. Basically, making Deku's life even harder. He was African-American teenager. He was African-American, well, 11-year-old to 12-year-old boy living in Freeland without a quirk. And Freeland was already kind of, well, populated with crime. Plus, people are running around with quirks in Freeland. It is kind of crazy. Now, basically, a lot of laws are strictly, like, very strict around those areas. But altogether, pretty much Deku had a very hard social life. He made some friends, but most of the friends he had were fake friends. just being friends with Deku because he had a very, well, one of the most successful, pretty much, well, parents in Freeland. Not rich, but successful nonetheless. Now, he would have fake friends, friends like that, and Deku would have just discarded all this. And Deku's life would even go down a spiral because we'll see that Deku would have flashbacks of him being completely shattered when he was told that he was quirkless. Deku, through his life, just went through bullying, torment, and most of the time he got into a lot of fights because Deku wasn't going to let himself get picked around. In this canon, him having that, that Black Air Force One energy, just, genetically. Basically, him just fighting against other people left and right when they try to bully him. Most of the time he would lose, but most of the time he would come back to the next day and beat the kid up behind his back or throw a chair behind his head, basically knocking him out or giving him a full-blown concussion. Since Deku's father was very known in Freeland, he would get a slap on the wrist, sometimes a suspicion, sus- suspended and stuff like that. So basically, what happened is Deku would have had a very rough social life as a child, but that would semi change when Deku was officially 12. Basically, we see that Deku would have pretty much just he would basically just grown up, kind of like the original Jefferson Pierce. And for this canon, Deku's real name is gonna be changed into Jefferson Pierce, like in, canon of Black Lightning. His real name will be Jefferson Pierce, but for narrating purposes, I'm going to narrate him, I'm going to prefer him, or I'm going to, address him as Azuku or Deku. So basically, for narrating purposes, for you to know who I'm talking about, Azuku or Deku, but his real name, just for context, is Jefferson Pierce. So when I say Deku or Azuku, I mean Jefferson Pierce, or Jefferson or Pierce. Basically, yeah. So basically, let's get into it, guys. Let's continue with the story. Basically, we see that Deku would have had the same type of childhood throughout his life, leading up to his 12-year birthday, and this is when his life would start to hit a railroad, and this is when Deku's life would have changed. This is when he would have the turning point in his origin story. We'll start the morning off with Deku waking up, pretty much getting ready for his birthday party. His birthday party would go down the same, and that night, Deku's father would be approached by pretty much, a man. A man named Gambi. Basically, this man would have came to Jefferson's father, or Deku's father, basically asking for help. And that would eventually lead to Deku's father dying. As pretty much this raid, or pretty much what was it? The thing that the ASS were doing to Freeland wasn't happening because they were using they were using these things to dilate or make the citizens of Freeland docile, but it would give them a quirk boosting power, and people that didn't have quirks got them. So Freeland was even more, in trouble because first of all, people with quirks are more powerful and have nearly no limits to their quirks, and others that don't have quirks in Freeland have them now. So basically, what happened is Deku would be given this first shot. Basically, Deku's father not wanting Deku to feel, weak. Because in this universe, Deku's father would have a fire quirk, but would have a fire quirk similar to he could breathe out lightning. What I'm trying to say here is he could breathe out fire with lightning sparks in the flame. So it was kind of weird. Like it was sparks inside the flame. Kind of weird, but basically, pretty much his quirk was pretty, powerful. Near Endeavor like base power. But basically, we see pretty much Deku's father would have gotten into this case and want to try to bring down the bias, but if you've seen Black Lightning, you know what that leads. During this whole entire event, Deku would see his father get murdered in front of him. He would watch this, seeing the bias kill him in front of him. And this canon, it wouldn't go as like in the comics or the pretty much the TV show. It would go a lot more different, a lot more brutal, a lot more painful. As that Deku would be pretty much spying and keeping quiet underneath the bed where his father would tell him to not say anything, while Inko was basically in the other room, staying as quiet as possible in her closet. Basically, we would see that pretty much he would have getting beaten to death, him hoping that they won't find his family. Deku would see his father get beaten halfway to death, and he wouldn't choke him with his own articles that were used against or was trying to be used against Tobias to take him out or to put him behind bars. Tobias would have used his quirk because in this universe, Tobias doesn't have a serum; he has a quirk, and basically, he would have had a strength quirk near pretty much All Might level, or basically Tobias would have been working or would have been the right hand man, or would have been part pretty much not right hand man, but pretty much partners with All For One. Tobias would have pretty much beaten his father to a bloody pulp, ripping out his heart from his chest. Deku would see this and would be disgusted, would be shocked, would be scarred for the rest of his life. After that event, we will see that Deku, after that, would have passed out underneath the bed, making no noise. And pretty much Tobias would have left Deku's dead, ripped up, brutally beat father down on the ground, dead, with his heart being taken away and Tobias throwing it away or disposing it somewhere else. Now what would happen is pretty much Deku would have seen this all. He would wake up hours later in a hospital bed, and basically Deku's mother would have told Deku that we're leaving Freeland for good. Her being more hurt from Masashi's death emotionally, her losing the love of her life, the father of her child, and everything that she loved. Basically, after that, they would move back to Japan, basically where pretty much where pretty much Inko would have spent most of her life loving pretty much Deku's father, and she would move back there. She would move back into a nearby house there, very, very like uncannily similar to the Pierce family house that they had in Freeland, just a little bit different color scheme and also just a tad bit bigger. Now, basically, because Deku's father would have a lot, like a stupid amount of money saved up in all of his accounts in case he was going to die. So basically, what would happen is Deku would have seen this, would have known this. And what happened is Deku would have basically just, gone through life. And soon, when Deku would turn 13, 14, yeah. When Deku would turn 14, he would start to inhibit or example some sort of abilities. Now, first, when his father died, he passed out, but a shot of electricity came down his spine. In the next couple of years later, his powers, his newfound abilities that were activated by the serum from the ASA from Freeland would have started to activate on Deku's bloodstream, giving him his electrical powers. We see that Deku would have been at the Pierce family house. And this is what Deku's real house in Japan would have looked like. A little bit different, not that many trees in the front, and, set in Japan. Pretty much down, the road. Basically, a pretty nice, spacious house. Deku would have been in his room, and just a disclaimer, Deku would be a little bit of a, tech guy in video games and stuff like that. Also in science, some science. Mainly, the study of quirks and stuff like that. Not study of biogenetics or whatnot, but more into, technology, tech. But, not as techy as Gambi or somebody like him. And basically what happened is we get switched to pretty much Deku would have been about 14. And in this time frame, I would have forgotten to mention something. Gambi would have been part of Inko and Deku's life. Gambi would have been kind of a father figure for Deku, and we gave him some, advice from a man's perspective for his, growing up as a, teenage boy. Now, basically, for Inko, guys, I'm not shipping Gambi with Inko. There's some of you guys thinking that, so just know. But basically, pretty much what happened is Deku would have been in his room one day, and as he would go on his phone, or as he would go on his phone, he would have shocked it or pretty much fried it. He would have touched it and it would instantly fry, or pretty much shock and blow up. Deku would be confused and he would call his mom. His mom would buy another one, basically saying not to break it this time and just make sure it's okay. Basically, her just thinking it's a weird copy, and she would have tried to pretty much sue the phone company, and she would actually get a couple money off of it. So they would even get more money. So yeah, so basically, Inka would have had a job to keep the money, but she didn't really need a job because, well, she had a lot of money, but she needed to keep her mind off of the loss of her husband because it's only been like 2 years since her husband died. So yeah, what would happen is Deku would have been just sitting in his room looking at his hands. And that night, as he was looking at his hands, he would have gone to the bathroom, and as he would go to wash his hands would have started to absorb the electricity from the room, making the lights flicker. And as the lights went out, the whole house with the black went dark. Deku would look in his eyes, and we see pure electricity, light. And you look at his hands, and lightning would have been glittering through them. Deku would see the lightning go through hand to hand, making a lightning rod in between his hands. As he would look at this, he would be intrigued by its power. What would happen is Deku would have absorbed more electricity, and pretty much his body would have started to glow in light. And as this canon, Deku would have the same powers as Black Lightning, but they would have been near the same ability, the same power level as well, Lightning, as in Black Lightning's child. The one that has better powers than Black Lightning. They could have the same powers and abilities and base powers as Black Lightning, but Deku's electricity absorption would have been way more than Black Lightning's. Him in theory, Deku being able to his tops for right now for his age would be about absorbing the amount of electricity that it would take to pretty much power 2 Earths, or pretty much half of Earth for right now. If he could try his hardest, like put his whole mind to it, he could probably short out a whole continent or a whole state. Basically, him being able to absorb a lot of energy all at once, but he would be really pretty much tuckered out by this whole entire thing. Now, if Deku grew up about in the 30s or 40s, he would probably absorb enough from like 2 or 3 continents connected with each other, basically, and being able to absorb a lot of electricity. But nonetheless, pretty much we would see that Deku's powers would have been very powerful. Now, basically, the past couple months, because in this canon, Deku would have gone to school, yeah, and he would have been bullied by Bakugo, but not bullied because Deku would still have that, Freeland, aspect, because he was raised in Freeland for a couple years of his life, and basically he would have started to fight against kids left and right, not letting Bakugo pick on him. As this happened, because Deku would start to manifest his abilities the day after the last day of school, because in this canon, Deku would not go down the tunnel this canon and just go his normal way back to school. I mean, normal way back home, because he would go to a different way because he would be living somewhere else. And also, Deku wouldn't, running with the sludge villains. So basically, Deku would have started to exhibit his abilities the day after pretty much, the last day of school. And this is when the 10-month arc train would have happened. Now, Deku's quirk, or Deku's power, not quirk, because it would be a modified ability, or pretty much a manufactured quirk. Deku would go to Degyo Beach and would start to manifest or try to, pretty much master his abilities. He would start in small ways, and if you guys haven't noticed yet, or if you guys haven't catched on, Deku is African American. Um, I don't know why I don't remember telling you guys, verbally that Deku is African American, but let's get into it. And basically, Deku would start to examine his abilities, pretty much shooting electricity, lightning bolts, shards of lightning, absorbing, even making lightning force fields around himself, him being able to make a full-on force field all around himself instead of just a wall of lightning. So he'll be able to make a full-on electric force field all around himself like a dome. instead of just a shield like, in the show. Deku can also use electricity to move objects, and pretty much he can shoot very concentrated blast of lightning throughout all of his fingers, individual fingers, to pretty much hold about 10 guns in his hands with electricity, or to hold items with electricity with, 10 items with electricity for a short amount of time. Deku's maximum output of electricity from out of his body would be a lot of energy, but he would still have that whole entire nervous system problem that Black Lightning would have. Now, the nervous system problem wouldn't be as severe as Black Lightning's abilities. Him being able to dish out a very good amount of electricity without his suit to protect him from the whole entire, nervous system thing. Now, Deku's powers would have also been very much, enhanced, I guess, basically him being a little bit like 2 times better than the actual Black Lightning. Deku would start to absorb his powers better and better, but Deku would still have the whole entire nervous system problem with him using too much electricity at once, like a huge blast or like a huge like EMP type levels of electricity. I know MVP takes out electricity, but like kind of like, well, let's just say kind of like a nuke bomb level of electricity. Basically, him being able to dish out that much, but if he did that, he would instantly pass out or straight up maybe just die or get brain dead. So basically, or become brain dead. So basically, stuff like that. Now, pretty much we see that Deku would have pretty much started to do stuff left and right. Basically, what happened is Deku would have started to clear out the pretty much beach, because in this camp, All Might wouldn't take Deku under his wing, and All Might wouldn't be, found out about his, wound, because Deku wouldn't be there. Deku would never come across him, and Deku in this camp wouldn't be a big All Might friend, a big All Might fan. He would still like All Might like most people do in My Hero Academia that are kids or like heroes, and Deku would just be more and more focused on how his powers work. But Deku would still be deep down inside salty about his father's death. He would be completely filled with vengeance. Now he knows that he can protect himself, and he knows that he can protect. He knows that he can do things, amazing things with these abilities. But all's going through Deku's mind is how to kill Tobias. Tobias Wells, the man that murdered his father in front of him. Basically, Deku would have been filled with rage, him testing the limits of his abilities, him basically frying or pretty much zapping most of everything from pretty much from the beach, and all the rest of it just being moved out by his bare hands, because Deku would be also working on his physical strength to help his physical body absorb more electricity and also take more hits and beatings, and also be able to actually fight back hand-to-hand combat. Deku did make a trick to basically use his fist to pretty much make taser fist of sorts, like Black Lightning does to punch people. So Deku would be able to channel pretty much 2 times the power, or pretty much the same power as pretty much a taser in his knuckles, in every individual knuckle, being able to pretty much electrocute anybody that pretty much make contact with Deku's knuckles. Basically, Deku would also have a very enhanced type of enhanced type of electricity scene. Basically, him having the ability to see electricity current, or see through electricity seeing through walls with electricity current, or seeing through items with electricity. Being able to have it without having a suit. So basically, he would have the same abilities as Black Lightning, because Black Lightning would get this ability by himself without the suit by season 3 or season 4. Now, basically, pretty much doing this, we see that pretty much Deku would have used most of all his time just training his body to the limits, physically, mentally, power-wise also, and just a bunch of other stuff. Deku also building up a lot of his knowledge as well, him saying that knowledge is power as well. He can't just focus on his body and nothing else. So he does study a little bit about how or what they're going to be learning in UA, because most likely they're going to be learning about math and stuff like that, because they still need education. They just can't be told about hero stuff and nothing else. But yeah, so basically what happened is Deku would have used most of all of his skill and power, him basically learning how to do karate and also martial arts as well over the 10-month art training, him learning karate, martial arts, boxing, and pretty much slap boxing as well. Basically learning about 3 martial arts in 10 months. Him being completely dedicated to physically improving his body to the best. And Deku would have a body similar to this, but more perfected. Basically, pretty much just imagine this brown skin tone, like African American, just all around his body. So basically, Deku would have had pretty much this level is muscle, but a little bit more perfected. And basically, since Deku would know a lot about martial arts, plus his electricity ability, and plus his endurance training and mental state he's put himself into, he's basically like top tier, like hero material, soldier material even. Now, after Deku Beach would be cleaned out, we see that Deku would have sat towards the dock area night and day, basically just, sitting there enjoying the silence. Now, pretty much, Deku would have also, focused on his pretty much mental state, doing some type of, pretty much what was it? Physical training, staying calm, and just enjoying the silence near the pretty much what was it? Not dock, but pretty much, well, I guess dock. I don't know any other word to say it, but basically you'd just be sitting there and just, well, just staying quiet, just feeling the silence, hearing the seagulls, squawk, whatever they do, and pretty much just hearing the waves go up against the sand. That basically what would happen after this. The last the last week, because Deku would be working his body off, learning all these martial arts, plus the training schedule with these martial arts, plus the training schedule he already put himself through, with cleaning out the pretty much cleaning out the beach, plus the training schedule he uses to pretty much strengthen his powers, plus his mental training schedule, aka studying. So Deku's whole month has been filled with nothing but work and physical fitness. So basically, Deku was just at top physical peak. So basically, Deku was kind of like Spider-Man levels of top physical human strength or top physical human body. So Deku was basically like a a natural super soldier. Basically, he was just he trained his body off. Now Deku's body wasn't perfect because a person probably can't be completely perfect, and Deku had some cheat days doing the 10-month art training. So the pit is simple. Deku basically just has the same body he had in canon, but a little bit more perfected, and him knowing all these martial arts. So he's not at the level of Azawa levels of. He's not at like not Azawa, but he's not like levels of Captain America or Spider Man type of muscularity or strength or anything like that. But Deku's pretty formidable and pretty much at a very good level of pretty much well strength. But doing this 10-month art training the last week, Deku would have been approached by Gambi, and Gambi would have brought up the idea of making his own hero costume, because Deku would be bringing up the idea of him joining UA to his mother and to Gambi. Gambi would have said, okay, and pretty much Deku would have shown him his power. Gambi would have said, I thought you were quirkless, and Deku said, I thought it was too. He would have told his mom as well, his mom seeing this and her being confused. She would just leave it be and say maybe the doctor was just got something wrong. But basically, her saying soon we're gonna have to go back to the quirk doctor and change your pretty much file, saying that you're not quirkless, but you are. You have a quirk. But basically, as this happened, we will see that pretty much Deku would have gotten ready for UA, the entry exams. So we start now. Basically, what would happen is Deku would have gone to the quirk entrance exam, being wished good luck with Gambi and also Inko, and basically walking and pretty much getting to the quirk assessments. Deku would be wearing a blue version of his jumpsuit or his green jumpsuit, a dark blue version of his green jumpsuit with the sleeves rolled up, and pretty much Deku getting into pretty much a running starting stance. As this would happen, pretty much President Mike would have told him to go. Pretty much as you remember that, guys. Deku would be in the back, or previous Deku would just keep to himself, so Deku wouldn't gotten that whole entire thing with Ochaku or anything with Ida or Bakugo. What would happen is Deku would have sprinted off, and basically doing this, Deku would have started to throw electricity, lightning bolts, and thunderbolts all towards out the field or the fake city, taking down multiple robots and racking up points very quickly and more faster than anybody else at the fake city. He'll be throwing electricity, lightning bolts, thunder, and also not thunder, but like a lot of electricity and lightning bolts from his hands, just shooting them like Zeus towards the robots. He would have fried them, shoot holes through them, and stuff like that. And Deku would also learn a trick with his electricity, basically using his electricity to pretty much him being able to shoot electricity from all sides of his body, not just from his hands. Him shooting electricity from his mouth, eyes, ears, hands, back, shoulder, chest, knees, shins, toes, basically being able to emit electricity from any part of his body, kind of like how Black Lightning still does it, but mainly from Deku's hands. But Deku's been able to use it and shoot electricity from his from his hands and feet, basically using a good amount of electricity to conjure it into pretty much a single type of conjured blast. Basically being able to push his body forward into the sky, giving him a type of propulsion ability or a type of flight. Him being able to use electricity around him or electricity he stores up to boost himself into the sky like a rocket, and pretty much him using his electricity to guide himself. So Deku pretty much is able to fly electricity wise. Now Deku would have been flying around, basically flying towards the 0 point robot. He would have landed on top of the head and would have sent it with a huge electrical charge, short-circuiting it. He would have felt a little bit woozy afterwards, but he would have jumped off of it, landing nearly safety, making a lightning force field around him before he hits the ground, and basically him going towards Ochaku, helping her up. He would have ran her toward the recovery girl, and he would have ran back to the fixed city, trying to gain up more points. He would have taken down 4 or 5 one-pointer robots until the time was up and they had to go back home. Deku would go back home and walk into the house talking to his mom and would wish her good night. Him just going straight to sleep after because he was tired from the electricity. Now, guys, next day Deku go to UA, similar to the same after he gets to know from UA a couple days later, and basically would go to UA. Deku would have sat down and pretty much things would have gone similar to the same. Bakugo would be confused on why Deku was here, because Deku was quirkless. He could fight, but Deku always lost half of the time, and also, Deku's quirkless. He's a quirkless nerd, and he can't be here. Pretty much Kachan or Bakugo just being kind of angered or peed off by this, just for Deku being here. As pretty much Azawa would have introduced himself because he was being in a sleeping bag, he would have told the class to do quirk assessments and then meet him outside and get into their gym clothes. Deku would get into his gym clothes, and basically Deku would get ready. Some of the kids in pretty much class 1A haven't seen an African-American or a Blasian child or a Blasian person ever in their life. Basically, pretty much Bakugo's starting to make racist jokes all of a sudden. Not like racist jokes, but just saying, do you have a mutation quirk or something, nerd? Basically, him just being kind of a jerk. Deku would have just scoffed this off, saying whatever. And basically, as this would happen, we see that basically Deku would have happen is basically Deku would use electricity because he would go up first, because he would get the high score in the entry exams. He would have took the ball and he would have thrown it as hard as he could and throw it pretty well. But when it was going down, he shot it with a discreet blast of lightning, pushing it forwards. Azawa would have introduced this as creative and would have gave him a good point. or a good score. Long jump, Deku would boost himself forward with a lightning blast from his hands, putting his hands behind his back. For the race to do the same thing, just using his electricity powers to boost himself like a torpedo past everybody, getting second place, or not getting first place because he would be boosting himself near, not at, but like not even near, but similar to the speed of a lightning bolt or a bullet. And basically, we said Deku would have also for the grip test strength, he would just get a pretty good score just using his base strength and also using a little bit of electricity to basically, fry with the circuits and also make it go a little bit higher. And altogether, Deku got a pretty good score. Now, basically, Deku would get about, let's say, about like second place, and basically Deku would get a pretty good score. Bakugo would have also tried in this canon also still try to take down Deku because he would think Deku was quirkless and he just lied to him all this time. Deku would say to back off, Bakugo, I don't want to hurt you. Bakugo said, hurt me, like you can do it. And basically him throwing a lightning bolt towards Deku. Deku would have dodged and would have shot a huge bolt of electricity towards Bakugo's chest, pushing him into a nearby tree, knocking him out for the time being. They would have left the house. They would have left the pretty much school. Bakugo going into pretty much the recovery girl, him getting treated, and Deku getting handed, and the rest of the class being handed their syllabus. Deku getting the scolding, but Azao doesn't want to do the paperwork to expel Deku, and also on top of that, Deku's kind of defending himself, so he doesn't really care, and he just lets Deku go along with a slap on the wrist. So after that, we see that Deku would have walked back home. So basically, what happened is Deku would have gone on his way back home. Basically him just going home, and basically he would be approached by pretty much what was it? He would be approached by Ochaku. Ochaku would have, gladly her saying I didn't have enough time to thank you earlier, but she would thank Deku for saving her. She would have offered pretty much, what was it? What was it? A date or something, and basically Deku would have said, "Nah, I'm good." Him saying, I don't really need rewards like that. Basically, her saying, "Okay, well, see you tomorrow." Basically, her walking off. Deku would have basically just walked back home, and basically would have walked down the street. As Deku was doing this, basically Deku would see an outfit near pretty much a window area at a store, and basically would have saw this outfit, the same exact outfit here, and Deku would have said, and basically he would have bought it. Now basically Deku used his allowance to buy this outfit, and basically would have gone to his house, take the outfit off, and wear it for another day. Wear it for another day. And that's where I'm gonna leave off part 1, guys. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. Part 2, we'll have a little bit more vigilante stuff, and we'll be introducing his 2 different outfits. Because Deku will have a vigilante outfit, or a vigilante suit, and his hero costume suit. So basically, Deku will be vigilante, looking for vengeance to go against the bias and try to find him, and also the other stuff. So basically, in part 2, a little bit of vigilante plus hero stuff. And yeah, guys, so I hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and have a blessed day.